Hi there, Sandy here. Welcome to another Friday Findings video at my YouTube channel and my blog. Today I have for you yet another part of my studio tour. Many of you have requested to see more details of how I store and organize, and so I'm happy to oblige. Today I'm going to show you this area, which is really my main work area for just about everything that I do. This is my work table, and I have it covered with just a grid mat. I first started covering this area with grid mats because I was a quilter, but it's actually a pretty good surface for doing polymer clay and jewelry making because you have all the measurements right there. I kind of destroyed this corner up here making the organizer that I showed you in part 4, cutting a lot of pieces with a craft knife. But I flipped it around. There's my pasta machine, which is what I use for mixing colors in polymer clay and rolling out sheets and getting things even. I took the time and made a little chart. I can send you to a link that explains how to do this, that tells you exactly how thick each setting is, how many playing cards thick it is, and also a description, as it's really not standardized in the polymer clay world so much. I mentioned this magnifying lamp in my overview tour. It's one of my favorite things in my studio because it enables me, even with failing eyesight, to be able to do the small details that I love. Some of you may recognize Sadie here. She was one of my dragons I made in my Dragon Challenge in 2015, Sadie and Siri. She holds my iPhone for me. So I like having fun things that I enjoy, as well as useful things around me. And then there is this 6-section organizer that I found at Ocean State Job Lot. And we'll just start from the top and work down. And here's another one of my dragons, based on Mandarin Moon, Chris Capono's class over at Polymer Clay Adventure. And the reason I put it up there is because I don't really use stamp pads a lot these days. And then in here I just have my stamp pads. You can tell I'm a big fan of labeling. I love my Dymo labeler. Everything is labeled. And then all the smaller stamping accessories are just in this little shallow Tupperware tray. I used to sell Tupperware, so I have a lot of it hanging around. And this is actually organized very similarly to over here, where I have things in boxes that are related. Here I have wires or a certain kind of tool. Here I have all the stamp pads together. And then when this piece came from Ocean State Job Lot, it was just the 6 big cubes, and I asked my husband if he could possibly make me a shelf. And he actually made it adjustable. He just made a shelf, and I think he has a jig to drill all these holes, which is wonderful, so that I don't have things stacked on top of themselves. And this white box, by the way, is from IKEA. I'll find out just which one it is. So on this next shelf here, I have my little handy-dandy package of baby wipes, which I use all the time. In fact, I buy great big packages and then just refill this one because I like this shape and size. It just fits well on the shelf. On this shelf I have some metalworking tools, which I bought 6 months ago and have barely touched since, but I hope to do some metal dapping, which is forming pieces of metal in these rounded domed shapes. There's a lot you can do with that. I just haven't had the time to get to it. And then I showed in last week's video how I organized my paintbrushes in mason jars just by putting chicken wire over the top. You can just cut a piece the same size as the top of your jar and then add the ring. And that's awesome for keeping your brushes upright and not tilting all over the place at crazy angles. And I just painted them with chalk paint. And I didn't buy 2 colors of chalk paint. I actually diluted one down with some white to make the other shade. This pen I actually pull out and use a lot. And this was my second article in Polymer Cafe magazine, was on how to make this pen. And then these tools, I'm always pulling out. This calipers, I actually have a video explaining how to use it. So on this shelf, you can probably tell I don't access this box a lot, which is why I have stuff piled in front of it. This is another dragon with just I think there's just some random things. Yeah, I don't even know. I just threw in there some scripture memory verses that I put on business cards. Although, really now, I do all that on my iPhone. Some tools. These are some leather stamping tools, which are great for making impressions in polymer clay. And also, there's a great set of tools from Harbor Freight, which I have to remember are there, because I keep forgetting to use them. And I'm not even going to open that box. It's just got like random stuff that I almost never access. I probably should go through it at some point and get rid of most of it. And then these are metal stamps, but I also use these for polymer clay. This box is actually being used what it was designed for. This is the Tim Holtz alcohol ink box. And so I have all my alcohol inks in here, extras, the alcohol blending solution. The baggies with inks in them are ways that you can color things by putting a few drops of ink into the baggies and then shaking the things around. You can color metal, glass, ceramic. And then this is how I keep track of my ink colors and choose colors. These are Dymo labels, and they work with alcohol inks great because they're non-porous. So I just put every name on there and put a little drop of the color next to it. On this other bottom section, I have these little decorative trays that I found, I think, at Michael's. And all of my polymer clay experiments go in here. I do try to sort of keep them sorted by theme, so these are flowers, kind of floral-y things. These are mostly dragons. Things that I wasn't happy with or thrilled with, but many times I've dug through here and found something that I could use later on, so I don't throw it out very often. These are mostly beads that I've made. These are fun, faux African trade beads. If you watched my faux sea glass bead video, you'll recognize these. Perhaps these were those blackened lumps that happened when I set my oven too high. And I've since colored them with Swelligant patinas and paints, and they're pretty cool looking. Just different bits and pieces. You can see none of this is really that great. And then some experiments. These are fun. It's a little pie in a beer bottle cap tray. I should put a magnet on that and put it on my fridge. Just some different things. Chocolates. I taught a class, and it's still there over at Craft Art EDU, on how to make polymer clay chocolates. And then in here, I keep all my stamp blocks. I think this container is just something, part of a set from IKEA, and it's just all my stamping blocks, which these days I probably use more on polymer clay than I do on rubber stamping. And this is just an old gift card that I use for burnishing, sometimes for putting textures in mokumegane, all sorts of things. Moving up, here's another one of the squares that I divided into 3 sections, thanks to my husband's work. And another one of my pens that I use all the time. And these are actually lids. That's just a lid from an IKEA box. And it's perfect for these shallow things like perfect pearls and glitters. Now these really don't belong here, but they don't have a home yet because I haven't tried using them. These are the Pebeo paints, the fantasy paints. If you haven't seen what they can do, I'll send you a link, but they are just the coolest things, but I haven't had a chance to play with them yet, so I keep them out on the shelf so I'll remember. Oh, and this is just random things. These are bits for my garden that I need to do something with. Experiments for my fairy house that didn't come out quite the way I wanted them to. And you notice I have these labeled very clearly, just what's in there. So if I'm looking for something, it's easy to find. And again, these are things I don't use often, but if I didn't label it, I'd go crazy looking for the Stamp-A-Majig or my gloves or sandpapers. This terrible little fairy. She's kind of ugly and cute. This container is mostly scrapbooking supplies. I don't go into it very often, but this stuff I use on occasion. Oh, my bead spinner. I made a video on how to use this. My light, which is wonderful for being able to see what you're doing. These are mostly quilting rulers. In this container, I actually made this. I needed a way to corral them. and I just made it out of mat board and covered it with some decorative papers. This is my Tim Holtz Distress Ink tower. Oh, someday you may see a fairy house with something like that, but at the moment it's not quite right. Another crafter online loves to make containers and organizers like this, and she put directions, and I followed them mostly. And you could tell I didn't have heavy enough paper, so everything's kind of saggy. But it's great having them all out so I can find just what I need. And then I stick things like these were samples from a soldering class that I took. So I put them there just so I can admire them, or some days see how far I've come. And then in this last one down here, this is a tool actually from the Pampered Chef. And I remember going to a Pampered Chef party and they wanted to know our favorites. And I mentioned that I had 2 of these, but neither one is in my kitchen. This one's here with a lot of scrapbooking supplies. And then this one's over here with a lot of sewing and crafting supplies. Glue pens, watercolor pencils. I use this a lot for, not just for scrapbooking, but for sewing. And in fact, I used it in a video I made this week. Sanding block, brushes, just stuff. This was a favorite. I actually made a bunch of these for the quilters one year for Christmas. And everybody loves it, and they still tell me to this day that they love it and they use it. Put them over mugs that I got for like $1 at the Salvation Army, and it's a wonderful organizer. Somebody recently gave me this little container, and this is where I keep a lot of my most used tools that aren't just specifically for polymer clay. And this little basket is just full of beads that I have set aside for a particular set of projects and don't want to use them on anything else. These cats are all ones I made from Christy Friesen's book, Cats. And that's another piece from a Christy Friesen book. So I love having everything tidy and organized, but also just beautiful. You can see I've got these tribal pendants that I made in, I think it was Sylvie Perraud's class on Craft Art EDU. You know, and a little picture of my kids when many, many years ago. It's just nice to have your space decorated with things that you love, things that you've made, things that people have made for you, and yet still keep it neat and organized. So I hope you found this interesting and helpful. Thanks so much for watching Keepsake Crafts videos. If you liked this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and share. If you're not already subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do, for 3 new videos every week. I upload on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And make sure to follow me on Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, and on my blog. Happy creating. Bye-bye.